I'm Bob Brill. He's Eric Kramer. Welcome to Kramer and Brill, an NFL podcast and video cast. Each week we take a look at what's going on in the NFL. And during the season, we analyze your fantasy picks. So this week, we're taking a look at something a little bit different. My esteemed colleague is former NFL quarterback Eric Kramer, who provides some valuable insights to the process. And this week, we're taking a look at the remaining NFL free agents, the names that are still out there, guys who you know from years past, but you just wonder why they're not on somebody's team already. And in fantasy, it is a big deal because even now you're thinking who you can pick up and who may make a difference. And there's a lot of guys out there. And we're just going to get down the list and talk about each one of these key guys offensively and defensively. I think the top of the list really has to be the guy who's been with the Rams came on last year. That's Odell Beckham Jr. This guy's 29 years old. He's 29 compared to these other guys who are in the mid-30s. Why is he not somewhere?
I don't know. And it's funny you mentioned he's 29 because the way he's been talked about over the years, you'd think he's 59.
Yeah.
But here's what I think, that he's coming off an ACL tear, and that's what has people nervous right now, because he is literally at the height of his prime right now. And everybody saw that when he came to the Rams instantaneously. What I kind of think is going to happen is when he does come back from this ACL tear, whatever point that is, if he falls in line with the way ACL tears have gone and people have come back from the last 20 years, he's got a very good chance of coming back better than he ever was before.
Really?
And I think the ball is in his court as to when and where he goes.
Now, why is it the technology, the medical procedures that have gotten that much better on an ACL? That used to be a really almost career-ending injury.
What? Like, think back to the Dick Buckus days. I mean, he only played 7 or 8 years, and the knee injuries that you should see his knees today. I mean, it looks like they took a hacksaw to him. And when you think about Tommy John surgeries, how that used to ruin baseball pitchers' careers. Well,
now everybody has to have one. It's almost a requirement.
Right. And so the recovery used to be like, if you're lucky, you might get back to 80% in a year and a half. What was the running back for Minnesota? Anthony Peterson? Adrian Peterson had his 2,000-yard season after his ACL tear. And I think that's just kind of the way it's gone. I don't know if it's the technology with the surgery. Obviously, it's not gotten worse. It's gotten better. But I think the rehab part has also gotten better. And that's really where you see a lot of the progress anyway being made. It's the advancements in the therapy.
I think the next guy on our list is Antonio Brown. Now, we all know what he did with the Steelers. We all know what he tried to do last year, or they tried to make him do with Tampa Bay. And, he's 33 years old, but he's still a young 33. If you see him play on the field, it doesn't look like he looks like Beckham's 29, but at the same time, he's been a head case, for many teams. A lot of teams don't want to mess with him. Where does he end up in the scheme of things, as far as maybe not which team, but does he end up coming up in the season? Does he get signed by somebody? Where do you think it goes?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question, because there was a time last year, I think there was no question in anyone's mind, he was Tampa Bay's best receiver. And he's still at the top of his game. However, here's what every single team is going to ask themselves collectively. The drama that is sure to come, is it worth it? And it wasn't for Tampa Bay. It sure wasn't for the Raiders. And it obviously wasn't for the Steelers. I'm not sure how many teams are going to line up waiting to take that on, because you don't know what's coming. And that's for all of the scriptedness of pro sports these days, and the NFL in particular, it's a bottom line business. They want to know down to the penny how much they're going to make. And when you bring on someone like Antonio Brown, who leaves typically 2, 3, 4 times a year now, leaves people scratching their heads, everyone but his own. So I don't think teams are going to take a chance on that. That's just my personal opinion. They could, but I think it would need to be a desperate team in the hunt of a Super Bowl. Because is he going to play for a team that when he comes, they're already 1-6? Nope.
No. Will Fuller's the next guy on the list, and now Will Fuller's had some injuries, but I mean, over the last, except for last year, he's been averaging. If I'm looking at his stats right now, anywhere between 35 and 50 catches, always over 15 yards a catch, and three to anywhere from 3 to 8 touchdowns. And then last year he only played in 3 games, and he was coming off. That was with Miami. He had gone to Houston he'd been with Houston all his career since he got drafted as a rookie. Had some injuries, but also had some it was PED problems, and so he was suspended for a while. He still seems to be that receiver who can make a difference, and he's. I mean, I'm not sure how old he is. I didn't look that up. He was born in 1994, so that makes him what 22 plus 6. He's only 28 years old.
That's what I would have figured. He's probably been around about 6 years or so, something like that.
He came up. He was a rookie in 16. So yeah, he's been 2, 4, 6. This 7 years. 7 years in the NFL.
Yeah. So I mean, he's I mean, heck, like everybody knows, they can watch him play, and he's fast as a whippet. And the problem is, it doesn't take much to put him on the sideline. And when you're paying receivers now, what most of them are making probably anywhere from $6 to $18 million a year, to get 3 games out of him, I don't think that's. And he's going to be someone's, fourth receiver probably. I don't. It's hard to stick on if your production level is not meeting your salary.
Now, what about?
That's about. I'm saying about this time, 6, 7 years in there. That's when careers either go downward or upward.
Yeah, that's true. Julio Jones, I mean, obviously one of the biggest names on this list. His skills have faded. I mean, that's pretty obvious. With Tennessee last year, he's 33. Is he still the type of guy who can go out there and cause defenses to think, okay, we have to double cover this guy, which leaves maybe somebody younger and faster open? Is that in his?
Probably not, but okay, let's just switch the roles here. He went to last year to Tennessee and could not have had a worse system or quarterback to be throwing the ball to him.
Mm-hmm.
You put him with Patrick Mahomes or with Justin Herbert or with any of the quarterbacks in the AFC West or with some of the upper tier quarterbacks and offensive passing games. Is he the guy? Probably not the original Julio Jones, no, but the second coming of a guy that can still catch 80 balls a year, probably 6 to 8 touchdowns, and be someone that can be very productive still, yes, but it would have to be in the right scenario. He can't go to any one of the 32 teams and make this happen.
I think you're right. It may be that he ends up in the AFC West because of the quarterbacks that are out there. He's somebody I think the Raiders would take a chance on.
Historically, they take a chance on everybody, right? Some of those guys making the Hall of Fame.
The next guy on the list is not a wide receiver, he's a tight end. And I think we all have to, I think the consensus is whatever Tom Brady decides or wherever Tom Brady goes, Rob Gronkowski follows if Gronk wants to play one more year. And I think that's the big thing with him is, does he want to put out that effort? He's doing some TV now. He's not very good at doing TV, but things improve. He's still a name. He's still a pitch man. He can still make a lot of money,
and he can still catch a football dropped out of a helicopter.
That's true. But
so my thought with Gronkowski is, I think if he decides on a Wednesday that he wants to start that Sunday, that will happen. And you're right. It'll be with Tom Brady wherever he goes. And I think he's still a productive player. There's a guy right there, though, that he's already, whenever his last training camp was, that's going to be his last one. Like, he's now, if he wants to come join a team in week 4 or 8 or 10, that will happen. Because there's really nobody like him.
Well, and that puts the question out there, is Brady going to Miami? Or is he going to stay at Tampa Bay? Now, he talked about it the other day. I saw an interview with him where he talked about Gronkowski, and he said, he's not sure. He's saying exactly what you're saying. He's not sure Gronk's going to come out, but if he comes out, he's welcome, and he may come out just because he may want to play with Brady. So I
Who's Brady going to throw the Super Bowl trophy to again, if not Gronkowski?
Well, I think you're right. I do think that Gronkowski will come out at some point. But I mean, if they're 2-7 after week 9, obviously they're not going to the playoffs. And I think Gronkowski says, "See you, Tom. I'm going to take the year off, and we'll do that." And Tom may take the year off, but I think you're right. I think he will wait to that very last minute if Brady needs some help. I think Gronkowski is the help, and he says, "Yeah, I'll see you wherever it's going to be." So, offensive tackle. Now, Dwayne Brown of Seattle is the one offensive tackle whose name is out there that I think a lot of people are still saying, okay, he could play somewhere. He's 36 years old. That is quite old, especially for a guy in the trenches. Is he done?
I think so. It would take a unique situation. It would take somebody's very thin, good but thin offensive line to get depleted. And he gets a phone call and says, "Hey, would you like to come finish this season out with us?" That's what it would take. Because I think obviously at 36, his best playing days are long gone. And yeah, I think at some point you have to, does he have the motivation anymore? Does he have the body that will respond to the motivation? And that I don't think anybody knows until it starts happening. So I think, he's been a long time, very unique, gifted left tackle. But that Seattle team is a team now obviously in transition. So he's got to find a home. And tough to see that's going to happen now because, as you know, this is, the average career is what, 3 years or so?
Yeah.
And so, you better be, it's hard to stick around at that age. And as you are thought of, because you're the name Dwayne Brown, but you're not the player Dwayne Brown everybody used to think about.
The next player on the list I want to talk about is Joe Hayden. Now, Hayden's 33. If you're a Steeler fan, you love Joe Hayden. I mean, he's been great since he left Cleveland, signed a few years ago with the Steelers. And he made some splash plays this year. We got to see that. But he wasn't the old Joe Hayden. And, I mean, his skills have seemed to diminish. At 33, you expect them to diminish some. Is he a top-notch quarterback? And he went out there looking for a lot of money. I mean, he was looking for $10 million. And the Steelers were not ready to go there. And the Steelers moved on. They went with younger guys. They had some guys coming up that, as they normally do, and especially when it comes to defensive players. And I'm wondering, is Joe Hayden a guy that is going to hook up with somebody? Or has he priced himself out of the market? And is he done?
Well, you can price yourself out, and that looks like to be maybe what he has done to this point. But like with everybody we're talking about on this list, they're all plug-in players. So if somebody gets in a situation where, it's a young team and they start having guys go down, could they use a Joe Hayden to come in and influence that group? Heck yeah, they could. Like everybody we're talking about here. And so they're just, for everybody we are talking about, there really has to be that right fit, not only for where Joe Hayden feels comfortable, for what the team feels comfortable. Is he a good mix with the rest of, that defense? And I think everybody like the decision makers, the general managers and the coaches and the people who have say in all of this, I think those are all things that they're going to take into consideration. Because, right, I mean, you're not thinking about a future really with Joe Hayden as being your starting cornerback for the next 2 or 3 years. Nobody's going to think that. And so could he be a sort of coach on the field and set a good example for the other players to follow? Heck yeah, he could. And has had a lot of great games in the past. He's a great player and was a great player, but now, he's kind of that mid-level, I think, type of cornerback. Like you said, I mean, his skills look to have diminished, but he's also a smart, savvy player as well, and can play and can be really a thorn in the side of any offense if he's part of a good defense.
I think you hit the nail on the head there as far as the fact that he is a savvy player. He's a very smart player, and I think as playing around some of these guys that guys that take it seriously and know that their skills are diminishing. As those skills diminish, they have learned more and more and start to apply the good ones, apply what they've learned and make the adjustments. Whether you're relative to baseball, you know you're a shortstop who can't make it to your left very fast anymore, so you cheat a little bit to the left, and you make up the differences where you can mentally to take advantage of your experience. And I think that's what you're talking about with Joe Hayden.
We had a guy in Detroit, Tim McKyer, who had been around a little bit, and he was near the end of his career. He was a great influence as a cornerback with the Lions, and had been around, seen a bunch, and had been on some successful teams. And I think that kind of player on either side of the ball can be a really good fit for the right team.
A couple of guys I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on. Trey Flowers, the defensive end for the Lions, who's only 29, and Anthony Barr, an outside linebacker. I believe the last team he was with Minnesota. Both those guys went on IR at the end of last year, and they're both free agents. They're both young, 29, 30 years old. Do those guys or those type of guys still have a shot at hooking up with a team as somebody who's going to be a couple of year player and not just a fill-in?
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of people, and it doesn't have to be just football. Look what Andrew Wiggins is doing right now for the Golden State Warriors. He was the first overall pick when he came out and was an underperformer. All of a sudden, he's exploding right now. And so can Trey Flowers and Anthony Barr reach that level? Who knows? But I think neither one were that explosive of a player to begin with. They were good, steady players. And I think, again, if you're an owner of a team or if you're a general manager of a team and you can get that guy for a third or less, money-wise, that's probably where most of these guys are going to end up, either late in the season getting picked up, but I don't think they're going to be on a roster. Some of these, like Trey Flowers and Anthony Barr, I don't think will be on a roster to start the season.
One guy that kind of stands out there that everybody either hates or loves is the Ndamukong Suh. I mean, this guy, he's a monster. He is so controversial because he's had some great games, but he's had some games where he's injured people and people hate his guts. But
okay, so he'll step on the occasional offensive lineman at the end of the plays on the ground, mistakenly as he's walking back to his own huddle. It happens.
Yeah. The other thing about him is that, like I said, either love him or hate him. If he's on your team, you love him. If he's not on your team, you hate him. And he's 35 years old. He's out there. He's probably somewhat injury prone at this time. Maybe. I'm not talking about Bounty Gate or anything like that, but I just saw the Sean Payton movie last night, which was kind of interesting. But I got to think that there are guys who maybe not want to take a good shot at him now that he's not as agile as he used to be.
Hey, this is the guy. This could be last year's Von Miller. And Ndamukong Suh is that type of player. And he can tilt the field in your favor. And if you're a contender, and defensively, if you want to stop the run, that's the guy. If you want to collapse the pocket, that's the guy. He'd probably do this at 56 or 55, whatever he is. And so as long as he feels like playing, and it seems like he does, and given the right situation, this is the guy that I would bank on. Somebody like him, Odell Beckham, somebody that plays the game with something to prove, and I don't care how old he is.
Now, we wanted to talk a little bit about training camp. You mentioned it with Gronkowski that his last training camp's probably the last one he's ever going to have, because especially guys like this, maybe they do need something physical because of their age, but then again, these are guys that will step right in at any point, right?
How many defenses are there for Ndamukong Suh to memorize, or plays for Gronkowski to that he's never run before? And so you've got certain guys like that, like everybody on this list. They've seen, if they're a defensive guy, they've seen every offensive play. They know how to play players. They know what their own strengths are. They know how to feast on your weaknesses, and they know how to anticipate. That's the biggest thing. If you can anticipate in this game, and you've been around a little bit, even if your skills are somewhat diminished, you can still get by for another year or two past what sometimes people think you can. And I think that's the other thing too, is a lot of these people, every name on this list right now, in some way somebody has doubted them at some point. And Odell Beckham and Ndamukong Suh are perfect examples of that. And everybody thought when that Odell Beckham was the issue in Cleveland, when it turns out he was far from it. And so I think you got a lot of these guys that will play with a chip on their shoulder forever. And so, no, training camp is not where that's not where they want to go. They want to go on a team that wants to win. And and the way training camps are nowadays, no one hits anyway. And there's not a lot that they haven't done or seen that's going to take place in the next training camp.
Cool. Well, we'll see where these guys fall out and when they fall out. And if they're on your fantasy radar, you want to make sure that you check those injury wires every week too.
What we need is for the Bears and Justin Fields to step it up this year.
There you go. Okay, I didn't mention Steelers hardly at all. Oh, you got your Bears. You got it.
Well, I saw you skimmed across the top of them just for a minute there with Joe Hayden, which I thought was good.
I didn't talk about Kenny Pickett, right?
There's a time for that for sure.
You got it. There you have it. Kramer and Brill, an NFL podcast. You can join us each week by finding the podcast wherever you get your shows. And for the video cast, just check out my Bob Brill YouTube channel. The easiest way is just to go directly to our website. That's kramerandbrill.com. All the links are right there on the home page, plus past shows. My friend and colleague Eric Kramer, I'm Bob Brill. We'll see you next time.